Well, for my next category of usability tips, I actually changed my mind and decided to take two separate categories and combine them into one. So now we're going to look at some things around information management, which basically includes what I was going to talk about in information organization and also in the content management area. And why? Because really these two topics have a lot of similarities, and as you'll see as we look at a lot of the usability tips, a lot of them are very similar as well. So what is information management? Well, overall there's really two types. We look at the findability of information and the putability of information. What does findability mean? Well, it's how we find stuff, how we look at stuff, how we understand stuff. It's basically getting us to the information we need. And the putability side, well, it's really about where do we put this stuff, how do we organize information, everything in between so that people can actually find it. So in looking at this, we really want to take it down to its core step, and that is to really understand just how users think. And so how do users actually think? Well, most users are very unfamiliar with how SharePoint works, with how the internet works, so I like to call this the too easy information seeking model. User asks a question, magic happens, and user receives some kind of answer. And though this is very frustrating from our side, the reality is we have to understand that when we're doing systems like we can build in SharePoint and different information structures and that this is really where the common user thinks and comes from. And so if we understand this, we can actually do some things to make it better. So why doesn't this model really work? Well, the reality is when it comes to findability, a lot of times users don't even know what they're looking for. And most users don't know how to search, so using search as our default way to get to everything just doesn't really work. Most users don't have the patience for a complicated system, so if it's really hard to work through your structure, they're not going to do something. On the flip side, we have the whole concept of putability. And what is putability? Well, that's about storing this information so people can find it. Where from an information structure standpoint, it's huge because sometimes those tend to be cross-purpose, putting things in for findability versus making things easy to put. From a usability standpoint, you just have to understand both sides and see what you can do with SharePoint to kind of accommodate, because sometimes if you make a structure so that it's very flat so that people can find information really well, you're actually taking that same structure and making it very difficult for people to put things. So, in putability, we have our lists and libraries, our folders, our documents, it's our metadata, our 15 different ways that we can store information and put it in there. But why does there a struggle around this? Well, the fact of the matter is most users don't know where to put their stuff. So just like when I'm looking for something, I need to have some ability to understand where to go to find something. I need to also understand where to go to put my stuff. And this whole concept of tagging, metadata, and that, it's really great and good, except most people, it's just way too big of a mind bend and they just don't really understand it. And frankly, most SharePoint user interfaces are confusing. So in this next segment, we're going to talk a lot about information management and the ways that we can do some usability tips to make things more findable and more putable.